Is it 150? I've received a statement. The jury believes it will be impossible for us to reach a unanimous decision. I am answering their statement. Is there a possibility that after an additional period of time, today or tomorrow, you may reach an agreement on either charge? Okay. Please come up, Steve. Let's see if this does anything. Can't read my writing.
appreciate it.
Back on the record, in response to my question, is there a possibility that after an additional period of time, today or tomorrow, you may reach an agreement on either charge? Jurors responded, no, the jurors do not believe that additional time would lead to to agreement on either charge. Make your record.
Your Honor, just note for the record that we believe the appropriate response from the court is to just simply direct them to continue the deliberations. Absent that, we believe that the court should give the Howard charge.
The first question is, the jury believes that it will be impossible for us to reach a unanimous decision. I will read the Howard charge to them, and then we'll see if the additional deliberations could be. But I read the word impossible to mean impossible. Let's go get the jury.
Your Honor,
Okay.
we would object to a reading of the Howard charge at this point for the very reasons you just outlined, and that is the jury has made it crystal clear that they cannot come to a unanimous verdict in this case on either charge. When asked a supplemental question, they made it even more clear that that just can't happen. So in this respect, when you get the Howard charge in light of the clear communications from the jury on this issue, we believe that that would be coercive. Obviously, they can't come to a unanimous verdict, and we should accept it.
All right, let's go get jury. Look your objection.
Your Honor, I might just add, the rationale behind our position on it is that they've only been deliberating, I think, when did they go out? 2.5 hours yesterday, and I think they came back with their questions.
Time is not the issue.
I was just saying that we.
Time is not the issue.
Our position was that there hadn't been sufficient time.
I've had jurors out 5 days, and I've had jurors out 20 minutes.
Mark, I didn't hear what you said. If you want.
It's okay, Carmen, thank you.
Yep.
Are you going to add the question yes or no after the Howard, you said that?
I will state it on the record. Hold on, tell her to wait, tell her to wait. You guys want to read the last sentence on that?
Go ahead, Steve.
I'm sorry, just the last sentence.
Mm-hmm. That was the instruction I gave them. Says if the answer is yes, deliberate. If the answer is no, discharge the jury. That's from the Supreme Court.
I'd like you to reconsider that. Yes.
You can read the Howard charge. It's worthless. I've never had it work in any case I've ever been in. I gave him the last instruction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you give
We aren't on the record.
that's what I meant earlier.
Well, they have a bunch of different deals.
Yeah.
Deal with it.
Couldn't be more clear.
Please all have a seat. But that's, I understand, I know what the Howard charges, I've given it in 2 cases so far. All right, I'll give it, I'm gonna give it. Just- If they come back now, then we're done.
Your Honor, before they bring the jury, we got people back there crying, Your Honor. They can't do that when such a.
What?
Wait. Address it to the court. I am, I'm pointing her out, I'm pointing them out. That there's an order of courtroom decorum, and I'm pointing it out. I don't know how else to address it.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
There's people behind at the prosecutor's table who are out like crying, Your Honor, in emotion. And then
You're allowed to cry in the, you're allowed to cry in the courtroom, let's go get yours.
All rise.
You can have a seat. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give you one.
Retrial, that is the former Franklin County Sheriff's deputy charged with murder and reckless homicide. They've not reached a verdict, but they are coming back into the courtroom. So again, we're talking about Jason Meade in charges of murder and reckless homicide in the death of Casey Goodson Jr. The first trial ended in a hung jury in 2024, and they're reading through the Howard charge in court right now. We want to take you there live, as this is instruction for the jury to go back to what they were looking at to encourage further deliberation. Let's go to court right now.
Capable, impartial, or intelligent, say this one. Likewise, there is no reason to believe that more or clearer evidence will be produced by either side. It is your duty to decide the case if you can conscientiously do so. You should listen to one another's opinions. Don't do this. With a disposition to be persuaded. Do not hesitate to re-examine your views and change your position if you are convinced it is erroneous. If there is a disagreement, all jurors should re-examine their positions, given that a unanimous verdict has not been reached. Jurors for acquittal should consider whether their doubt is reasonable, considering that it is not shared by others. Equally honest, who have heard the same evidence with the same desire to arrive at the truth under the same oath. Likewise, jurors for conviction should ask themselves whether they might not reasonably doubt the correctness of a judgment not concurred by all others, by all other jurors. All right.
All rise.
That is the most confusing. Here, you want a question?
you stay close, Your Honor? You stay close? Okay.
Okay, you are watching live as the jury returned to the courtroom in the Jason Meade retrial and is now being told to go back and continue deliberations. The judge reading the Howard charge to the members of the jury, which is its instruction from the judge to a deadlocked or a hung jury to continue their deliberations, to re-examine their views, as you heard him speak to. So again, this is the Jason Meade retrial. We are watching closely. The former Franklin County Sheriff's deputy charged with murder and reckless homicide in the death of Casey Goodson Jr. Now, we have been here before. The first trial ended with a hung jury in 2024. So we will be watching this light very, very closely. Now, just before the jurors came back into the courtroom, we understand there was some back and forth there in the courtroom where family members of Casey Goodson Jr. became emotional, thinking that this may be a hung jury again. And Mark Collins, the lawyer for Jason Meade, felt that that emotion being expressed in court was inappropriate and took issue with that in court with the judge. The judge still brought the jurors in and again read the Howard charge to the jurors so that they will go back now, re-examine their views, re-examine the evidence, and see if they can deliberate further to reach a decision. We are following this very closely. Stay with 10 TV as we continue to update you on what happens in this trial.
Everyone can have a seat. We have a verdict on at least one charge. Go get jury.
All rise.
Everyone can have a seat. This is a case caption, State of Ohio versus Michael Jason Meade, case number 21 CR 5052. We, the jury, upon our oaths and law and evidence in this case, find the defendant guilty of reckless homicide as charged in count 2 of the indictment, signed this 7th day of May 2026 by each and every juror. Do you want the jury pooled?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the court and especially on behalf of the community, especially on behalf of the court. Thank you for your jury service. You're now free from all admonitions and warnings. Thank you.
All rise.
And I will declare a mistrial as to count 1 on this, as the jury was hung. At this time, Mr. Meade, I'm going to revoke your bond. I'll order a pre-sentence investigation report in this matter, and we'll bring you back for sentencing July 16th, 2026. Any questions on behalf of the state?
No, Your Honor.
Anything on behalf of the defense?
Your Honor, can we make an argument for bond at this point?
You can.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Your Honor. As the court is aware, there is no gun specification attached to the reckless homicide. There is no mandatory time. A felony of the 3rd degree does not carry a presumption, Your Honor, of any prison time. In terms of Mr. Meade, he has no prior record whatsoever. He's been in compliance with his bond for the entire duration of this case. They posted a bond. He has never been out of compliance. He has asked permission to travel, stuff like that. He's not a flight risk, Your Honor. We understand that the jury has spoken with regards to the reckless homicide, but again, there are, I would say, the predominant number of people who have charge of reckless homicide are out on bond, as well as with regards to, and people convicted of homicide, many times, reckless homicide in this court, have been given probation. They have been given a mixed sentence and things of that nature. So at this point in time, we would ask the court to allow him to remain out on the conditions of his bond, or if the court would like an additional bond, or if you'd like us to brief that and get that to you at the appropriate time.
At this time, I'm going to revoke his bond. If you need to brief it and have set up a bond hearing, that's perfectly fine.
Thank you, Your Honor.
That'll be all.
Have everyone on this side, and then we'll sign
A motion right now after the jury came back with a guilty verdict in the second count of reckless homicide in the retrial of former Franklin County Sheriff's Deputy Jason Meade. The judge did declare a mistrial on the first count, which was the count of murder. So mistrial on the murder charge and the count of reckless homicide. They have found the former deputy guilty.
Yeah, first full day of deliberations here for this jury, and back and forth really for a lot of the day. There's a lot of emotion in that courtroom. They came back, they asked questions, they took breaks, they took lunch, they came back, had some more questions back and forth. The judge even sent them back in, issuing a Howard charge, telling them to try harder when they said that it was impossible to come to a verdict. But they went back in and they did come to a conclusion for the reckless homicide charge.
We have Kevin Landers and Lacey Chris. We're at the courthouse. We're going to check in with Kevin Landers. He has been there throughout the duration of the day. Kevin, are you joining us live now? Can you hear me? There we go. Kevin?
Yep, I can hear you. A couple of interesting points that Mark Collins made for Jason Meade. First of all, this is a felony 3, which Mark Collins argued has no presumption of prison time, and he tried to argue with the judge not to revoke the bond to allow his client to be released and back home, and the judge obviously said, we're not going to do that. We're going to revoke his bond. It's interesting to note when you think back of this case, this started in December of 2020 when the shooting happened, when 23-year-old Casey Goodson lost his life in this shooting. Obviously a victory for the family who have been waiting for this verdict since the very beginning. So clearly they're smiling while the other side is not at this point. When you look back at this case, this started when Jason Meade was working a fugitive task force not involving Casey Goodson, but he says he saw Goodson waving his gun, and that's when Meade began to follow Goodson back to his grandmother's house. And then this is where the case gets interesting. Meade says, Goodson turned towards him with a gun, and then the shooting happened. The grandmother at the time said that Casey Goodson actually had a sandwich in his hand and keys, and did not see him turn around and fire that weapon. We were interested to see whether or not this case was going to go to potentially a third trial, because we've had 2 hung juries before. And then the question was this going to go to a third? And I actually talked to Ron O'Brien, the longest serving prosecutor in Franklin County history, who said it's certainly rare, but it wasn't unprecedented that it was possible that they could have gone to a third trial if this would have come back hung. But that is not the case anymore. We have a guilty verdict, and now we move on. The question now is for Mark Collins and the Meade team, will they appeal this case? And at this point, we don't know. Still very fresh after just minutes of hearing this guilty verdict. So that's what we'll have to be following as this case progresses. But clearly, both sides, there's a winner and a loser in a case like this. And we'll have to see how this all plays out as the legal part of this case continues, because, as I mentioned, Mark Collins had asked that his client be able to post bond so he can go home, but the judge eventually ruled that is not the case. Back to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Kevin.
Yeah, the back and forth. The back and forth also for both sides, because not being able to come to a verdict and being sent back in and then coming out with a verdict on one of the counts right there. Also, we can take you back outside the courthouse right now. Libby Cathy is there outside the courthouse. This is all fresh news. Libby, just coming out for the guilty verdict on one count there in the mistrial on the murder charge.
That's right, Jeff, and we are right here outside the Franklin County Court of Common Pleas, waiting for some of those family members and people on both sides of this case to come out and react to this for the first time. So we will be out here to receive them. So far, it's pretty quiet out here, but we're very eager to hear from those. And I know our Lacey Crisp, who has been all over this case, is inside the courtroom right now and may be seeing more of it, but I could hear just from our stream crying inside of that courtroom. So obviously a very emotional reaction to this verdict. And I believe Lacey Crisp, who has been all over this, has more inside right now. Lacey?
Yeah, you guys can about imagine the emotion in that courtroom. You know, we had about a 10-minute warning before the jury was brought back in. All the family members gathered in the courtroom. We had all the attorneys there. We had 6 Franklin County Sheriff's deputies there to keep order in the courtroom. Jason Meade's wife was standing up, rocking back and forth. Tamala Payne was sitting just a couple feet away from me. She was flanked by the family attorney, Sean Walton, and her pastor, Young, and she was crying. She was holding their hands, and tears released from Tamala Payne as that guilty verdict was read. Now, we don't know what happens next with the case. We know that the judge said that he has revoked the bond. His attorney, Mark Collins, will likely ask for another hearing here in a couple of weeks to talk about that bond, to talk about a sentencing date, and to see they declared a mistrial in the murder charge, which is interesting. So we'll have to wait and see kind of what happens here. But we're waiting to have some of the members of the family and some representatives of the Fraternal Order of Police talk to us. So as soon as they come in and they're ready, we'll have that information for you. Reporting live, Lacey Crisp, 10 TV News.
All right, thank you very much, Lacey. Do we have any questions? Can you hear me? Oh, okay, Lacey. I was going to ask her some questions about the reaction she saw and more. And she said, actually, the family crying, Tamala Payne crying, Meade's wife, Jason Meade's wife upset, rocking back and forth. This has been a really emotional time, and they've been through this. This is the second time they've been here.
There's
this is a retrial.
so many parallels to this case from the retrial from the original, but certainly a different ending to this, though. FOP President Lodge 9, Brian Steele, the president there, is about to speak. We're going to listen in on that.
You know, my name is Brian Steele, B-R-I-A-N-S-T-E-E-L. I'm the president of Fraternal Order Police, Capital City Lodge number 9. I represent 4,700 dedicated men and women. I have no prepared statement. There's really nothing to prepare me for this. I could tell you nothing shocks me anymore. What's kind of surprising is the bond was been revoked. You know, an F3 reckless homicide charge. It surprised me. Shitbags every day walk in and outside of that courtroom. They go outside and they kill members of our community. They shoot and kill our cops. A little surprised by that. We'll have a bond hearing at the end of the day. We hope to see Jason bond get revoked, and we'll see what happens towards sentencing. I could tell you just, you know, everybody that was involved, you know, this was long, 6 years drawn out. This is the second trial. I hope there, for the sake of not only the Meade family, the Goodson family, and the community, I hope we don't try to do a third trial on this murder charge. The prosecutor inherited this case, and we understand that. But now any decision to try the murder a third time will be on the hands of prosecutor Favor. I hope she I hope she looks through this case, sees it for what it is. 2 juries couldn't get it, and I hope that's the end of the day. When I'm going to go and I'm going to tell the women of law enforcement, I'm going to let them know what I've always told them. You are 1 run away from being the officer that got shot last week. You are 1 run away from being Connor Grubb, from being Adam Coy, from being Jason Meade. Yet you know what they're going to do? They're going to keep going on there every single day. Our cops and our deputies, they're going to keep doing their job because that's what they do. The FOP, we're going to keep advocating for the men and women of law enforcement. We're going to keep advocating for the community they serve. With that, I'll take any questions.
Brian, what did you think when they came back after 6 hours of deliberation, basically saying they're at an impasse? It would be impossible for them to reach a decision and then an hour and a half later come back with a guilty verdict.
I don't know what goes on in that room. I can tell you, I respect the jury. I respect their time. Clearly, we're disappointed with the decision. You know, it should either be 1 or none for me. But it took them time. At least they did their due diligence and look into it. And we'll see. I'm here to make no excuses. We'll just see what happens. You know, what upsets me, though, is you look at the courtroom. The Meade family, outstanding people, not a word. Some tears, not a word. Yeah, out in the hallway, I have someone mocking me, trying to make fun of me. Hey, you know, we did this. Like what, you want to fight or something? I could not care less. I'm always going to come professional. I'm always going to say the facts. Our side is never going to hoop and holler. We even said we had a pact. If we were to win this, we're never going to let them see it down. We're not going to celebrate it. We don't celebrate deaths. We don't celebrate court victories, but that shows the character of our officers and their family.
What was your reaction to the bond being revoked, and just why do you think that decision?
Again, we let people every day in this courtroom walk. Individual who shoot people. We've let people felonious assault walk. We've given them an ankle monitor and a piece of paper and said, hey, please, pretty please with sugar on top, don't do this again. And they still do it. But now when you have an officer, a 25-year veteran, a U.S. Marine who fought for the country, who fought for these United States, who with dedication and passion served, now he's getting locked up in a county, to me that's kind of a joke. You cannot tell me politics does not influence policing in court. I'll never believe that.
Brian, how does a verdict like this impact the entire law enforcement community here in Central Ohio?
Yeah, just like I told you. You have Graham versus Connor, you have a split-second decision. You get the wrong decision, you go to the prison, or you die. It's as simple as that.
Do you think this is going to cause, especially with this conviction on reckless homicide, officers to make different decisions?
It's already caused it. If you remember, some of the members of the media here a couple months ago, you wrote an article how traffic tickets are almost zero, how productivity is completely down. It wasn't just from this case, it was the Coy case, the Connor Grubb case, the Anderson case, the Ferguson effect, right? You tell us, what do you want our police officers to do? Do you want them to go out there? Do you want them to track down violent offenders? What do you want them to do when somebody points a gun at you? You just tell us. What do you want us to do? Our officers have a right to protect themselves, to protect the public.
Brian, what's your response to a guilty of reckless homicide, but then a draw when it comes to the actual murder charge?
Yeah, so again, did it meet the mens rea? Did it meet the culpable mental state? They clearly couldn't come to an agreement. I don't know what the count is. In terms of reckless homicide, it's a different threshold, whether it's knowingly, purposely, negligently, or recklessly, obviously. We'll see. What I know this is, the only one that gained out of this, the Goodson family gained nothing. They lost a family member, and that is terrible. The police, Meade's family, they gained nothing, they lost everything, as did the Goodson family. One person gained out of this. That's the poverty pimp that got $7 million from the city. The one that stands in front of you with a $3,000 suit and some Jimmy Choos that'll be up here in a minute. I'm a public servant with a Jose Bank shirt, just trying to tell you what the men and women of law enforcement feel.
2 years ago, we had,
Can you talk about just what this 5.5 years has been like for the Meade family? We heard a little bit about that in the last trial, but this time around we didn't hear much of that.
Sure. So again, it's impacted both families. We said from the beginning, for the sake of both families, how do you get a fair trial in this town? These highly publicized media's followed it, social media, everybody knew this case. That's why we stand on, you should have this in another town, in another city, for the sake of both families. I hope moving forward, maybe we learn on it, especially in the age of 24/7 media coverage, social media. We would hopefully try to see this for the sake of both sides, it goes somewhere else.
2 years ago, we also had a mistrial, but that was on all charges. I know that some of that changed between now and then. Do you think those changes are really kind of what made the difference between getting an actual guilty verdict here?
Again, I don't know. I don't know what was in mind the jurors. I just respect them for taking 2 to 3 weeks out of their life from coming down here. I know it's a lot to ask for jurors, you know, and they're doing their civic duty, and I just appreciate them, regardless of my disappointment.
Anything else you'd like to add?
No, just thank you so much for your time.
Okay, that was the FOP Union President Brian Steele speaking, visibly upset, obviously upset with this verdict. He does not agree with it, giving a large statement on the state of policing here in Central Ohio and talking to his officers and just warning them on, you know, what can happen just doing their job, at least according to Steele.
I wouldn't wait to see if anybody from the prosecution side comes out. Obviously, Brian Steele, they're not part of the defense team there, but speaking on behalf of police.
Do we have someone in the background? Okay, we're going to toss back to the courtroom.
We're pleased with the partial verdict. We appreciate the hard work that the jury did. They have spoken, and we're pleased with that. Obviously, there is one charge that is unresolved. We are making no decisions regarding that today. And I guess beyond that, I have no comment.
What do you think the difference is between the last trial that ended in a hung jury and this trial where you get one conviction?
I don't know. You'd have to ask the jurors.
Tim, can you talk about this is an emotional case all the way around. Obviously, you guys have dived headfirst into this. What it's been like working on this case for the last several years and now coming to this day?
tiring.
What do you make of the struggle it seemed the jury was facing trying to reach a verdict, and what do you think maybe changed in this trial?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
They were called back twice to really try to reach a decision. The judge sent them back to try to reach some common ground. Talk about.
Well, I don't think that's unusual with a jury. You know, it's a deliberative process. They're trying to reach a unanimous verdict. And so I don't think it's particularly unusual when a disagreement doesn't, or an agreement doesn't automatically materialize, that, you know, it's a process. And so it does take time, and sometimes they think, boy, this is hard, I can't get there, and they need a little urging to reconsider things, look at everything. And we saw what happened today. It resulted at least in a verdict on one of the charges.
Gary, I saw you hug Tamala after the verdict was read. What was that like for you in that position?
Well, it's been a long process. The Goodson family has been very good throughout this. They were, all the times they were in court, they were very respectful. I think they believed in Tim and I in this case, that we did work hard, and that we were looking for justice in this matter. You know, as prosecutors, we're looking for a fair verdict, and a lot of times I think the media got a little upset with us because we didn't, and we couldn't advocate for the case, nor was that our job to do. Our job was to advocate the case in the courtroom. So I think maybe it was a little frustrating for everybody because Tim and I were always no comment. We wouldn't go on camera, but that's not the state's role. The state's role is to make sure that Jason Meade got a fair trial. The state's role was to make sure the people of the state of Ohio get a fair trial, and I think that that's what we did. And at least when we presented the evidence today, we took a little bit different approach than we did last time, okay? Kind of mixed it up a little bit. It's, you know, different, you know, maybe the case just wasn't maybe concise or maybe not that clear to the first jury, although we felt that the first jury, they worked hard. But we really appreciate this jury. They all, I think, paid attention. They did follow the evidence. Although they couldn't make a decision on the first count of murder, at least they all came to a consensus on the second count. And we're very appreciative for the hard work that they put in on it.
Do you anticipate having a decision on what you're going to do with that top count before the sentencing date that the judge set today? I know you're not deciding.
We don't have a timeline on that.
Tim, who actually makes that decision to retry, and what goes into making that decision?
Well, the answer to that question is I don't know. We will have to consult with the county prosecutor's office, and mutually, I believe we'll make a determination.
Can you talk at all about the strategy of entering Meade's statement as evidence and putting him in a position where he didn't have to take the stand in this trial versus first trial where he did?
Yeah, we got this other count still hanging out there. We don't know what we're going to do with it, okay? You know, one of the big issues that kept coming up in the case was pretrial publicity and everything, you know, whether it's going to be moved out of county or not. And we did go through a very extensive voir dire. We were able to find jurors that could be fair and impartial in this case, and with very extensive examination as to what they knew or didn't know about it, and they could set aside any impartial and be impartial. And I do think we found a good set of jurors. A lot of them, believe it or not, as much publicity as this case had, didn't know anything about this case.
They're not watching you people.
But you know, I hate to get into the details as to what we might do, or if there is another pursuit of the other charge, as to what would take place in that. So I'd just say, I just want to extend another is these jurors do take a lot of time out of their day. They sat there for 2.5 weeks, almost 3 weeks, getting paid nothing, a lot of them. And we really appreciate their civic service to this community, to be able to take time out of their day to do something that very important job as being, as with any jury. So.
You were talking strategy before. I want to ask, compared to 2 years ago, I know the charges changed a little bit. Do you think that was maybe different in getting a guilty verdict on the second count?
You'd have to ask the jury.
Did you guys have the opportunity to talk with the jury in the last trial and see what they liked, what they didn't like, and maybe change it up from there?
We never spoke with any jurors. So, thanks, folks.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
So you've been just listening to the special prosecution team, Tim Merkel and Gary Schroyer there. Gary Schroyer was on the left, Tim Merkel on the right there, and saying a number of times that they have not decided what to do with that murder one charge in the future, that there will be some discussion and some things surrounding that of whether or not they would try to retry him on that, which was declared a mistrial in this case.
All right, we're going to send it into 10 TV's Kevin Landers. He's at the courthouse now. Kevin, what are you seeing out there? Has everyone left, or are there any family members still in the halls?
We have not seen any family members yet. A couple of things that I took away from what's just happened. So Jason Meade gets a felony 3. He won't be sentenced until July 16th, according to the judge. And so I think that's one of the big unknowns at this point, is how much time could he receive for this. So we're now going to go back to the press conference. We have more people speaking about the case.
Whoever's talking, whoever wants to do whoever's talking, then everyone else can go into the jury box.
We'll take the immediate family like right up front, and then we'll go have community behind.
All right, this is the mother of Casey Goodson Jr. there in the black and white coat. That's Tamala Payne. She's usually with family attorney Sean Walton, and I'm looking to see if he's coming up, but that's his mother. Okay, there's Sean. There's family attorney Sean Walton Jr. and Casey Goodson Jr.'s mother, Tamala Payne.
Justice for Casey.
Justice for Casey!
Tamala, I have to ask, what went through your mind when you heard the verdict?
Thank you, Jesus. It's over. Finally, he has to stand accountable for what he did to Casey.
Now, one of the counts, we don't know what's going to happen next. What would you like to see with that murder charge?
You know, honestly, I would still like to see the murder charge pursued. And I would still like him to be convicted of murder, because at the end of the day, that's what he did. He murdered Casey on December 4th, 2020. So he should be convicted of murder. But we are equally as happy that there's a conviction regardless, because he's guilty.
Does it give you pause at all that this has been the second jury that has returned a mistrial on murder charges?
I just think that we have people with different ideas and different ways of seeing things. And so, you know, everybody has their own opinion, different ways to look at things, and it just didn't line up with each other. And that's okay. But we got what we were supposed to get.
What did the last 5.5 years been like for you?
You know, a roller coaster of emotions, of course. You know, we were in trial, mistrial. We wait for years, continuance after continuance. Jason Meade got to be at home with his family for 5.5 years with no accountability on a $250,000 bond. So, you know, it's been a roller coaster of emotions for me and my family. But we stepped fast, we kept our faith, we kept praying, and we kept leading in love and light.
What message do you hope that the guilty verdict sends to other families out there also still waiting, you know, for justice and closure and their day in court?
Prayerfully it gives them hope, because, you know, as we see here, we are getting accountability. So hopefully it gives them hope that they will too. And I pray they do.
Tamala, was there anything in this trial that stuck out to you? Obviously, there were some differences, but watching it, was there anything that stuck out to you as to why we are talking about this right now?
Yeah, they didn't have a case.
But anything specific that you think tipped the jury over to the guilty on the reckless this trial versus what you witnessed in the first trial?
I think it's hard for the jury or any jury to convict an officer of murder. You know, we're talking about an officer, and we know how people view officers. But I think the evidence and the way that the prosecution team presented the evidence is what the jury based their decision upon. We have an overwhelming amount of physical evidence in Casey's case that just cannot be ignored. And in the murder of Casey, Jason Meade was very reckless. So.
And I'll add that two of the jurors that I spoke to after the first trial indicated that had they been allowed to come to a decision separately on the charges, if you recall, they were instructed that it was pretty much all or nothing. They believed that they could have come to a guilty verdict on reckless in the first trial.
Tim, I know this doesn't bring Casey back, but I wonder what does the verdict, how does it, what does it do for you and your family?
It gives us closure, it gives us peace, and now I'm sure I speak for my family when I say this. I know now Casey can rest. You know, we've been fighting for 5.5 years, and Casey sees his family fighting. He knows the stress, he knows the pain, he knows the heartache. And now not only can we try to find peace and finally start truly grieving, my baby can rest.
So what happens for you now? How do you move forward after today?
No, I guess it's one day at a time.
If you could talk to Casey, I'm sure you're a praying woman, I'm sure you are. What are you saying to him?
We did it, baby. He's in jail. We wanted him in jail December 4th of 2020. So it's been a long roller coaster ride of him not being in jail for what he did to Casey. He's in jail. We can go home tonight and I can lay down and I can sleep comfortably knowing he's in jail.
Anything else you guys want to add?
You know, I'll say on behalf of this family, I just commend them on their strength through this process, because it has been a long process, as you all know, experienced several times over, and it's been difficult for them. And so I commend them on their strength. I commend the special prosecutors for their work in bringing this case, because they have put a lot of effort into it, a lot of dedication, a lot of strategy. And it's not easy to convict a police officer of any charge. And also just the investigation in itself. I think that, you know, it's been in some circles framed as a political prosecution, and it's not that. It's actually been a very bipartisan effort from day one. You know, from the DOJ and the FBI getting involved and the dignity that they showed this family in those moments. It's all been very, very impactful. And so I do just want to add, because my grandfather passed away on Tuesday, and you know, it was not lost on me that happened, because almost 60 years to the day, May 10th, 1966, he was actually shot and left for dead by a police officer in Dayton. And he was placed in the back of a police cruiser and left for dead. And it took a supervisor to come on the scene and to say, can you walk? And to escort him to the hospital. And in the hospital, he was again denied treatment. And it took a nurse who slipped our relative a phone number to a doctor who came in and performed surgery on him and saved his life. And it took the non-shooting officer who actually told the truth. And the allegations against my grandfather were dropped, and that officer was terminated. And my grandfather always showed that grace and appreciation for that supervisor and for that non-shooting officer that told the truth. That non-shooting officer was later ostracized by the police department, and he committed suicide. And so for as much as I thought about my grandfather in the past few days, I thought a lot about that officer, O.J. Bradley, that committed suicide because of how he was ostracized for doing the right thing. And I think this has been framed many times over as anti-police or as, you know, an attack against police officers. And I just want to honor my grandfather. I want to honor Casey, who has been pictured with police officers. I want to honor this family and all of us who actually support and appreciate police officers. Jason Meade is one individual who was charged and convicted criminally, but he is not who police officers are, and it should not be framed as that. You know, this should not be a divisive moment. It should be an opportunity to heal, and that's what a conviction does. That's what accountability, that's what being held accountable does for our community. And I just think that all of this is a very powerful moment, and you know, I was gifted by Tamala and the family Casey's ashes right here in this bracelet. and I wore it today because I felt like it was, fitting to do so. And so justice for Casey. We are very appreciative of the community that has supported, and let's just keep pushing, Progress is our goal, and it's our guilty. Absolutely. Any further questions? All right, thank you.
Justice for
All right, you see the family of Casey Goodson Jr. there, relieved and joyous over the fact that Jason Meade has been held accountable for what happened to Casey Goodson Jr. in 2020. Now, they're speaking there. That was Michael Young, the pastor, was behind Tamala. Tamala and her family attorney, that was Sean Walton Jr., and Tamala is Casey's mother. And, they've been through a lot over these years, like she said, continuance after continuance. And I think they feel good that it's over. At this point, that it's over. They believe justice has been served, and they say someone has been accountable. The person responsible for Casey's death has been held accountable.
Yeah, Tamala Payne saying that, justice for Casey, as they said, when they entered and when they left the roller coaster of emotions, saying that, there wasn't a case there. It was the argument from the start, and she said that her baby can rest and she will sleep comfortably knowing that Jason Meade is in jail out of all this.
And another interesting thing she said is that she just accepts that people have different views. Her side saw it this way, the other side saw it this way, and she believes that the right decision was made in this case, which obviously the other side is not going to feel, but she says people just, see it differently.
Yeah. No winners in this. We're going to go back out to the courthouse now. Kevin Landers standing by live. Kevin.
Yeah, good evening. We were talking earlier about the sentencing, which was going to happen on July 16th. And when I was looking up the case, a felony 3 of reckless homicide carries with it a 9 to 36-month sentence plus a $10,000 fine. So it will be interesting to see as we move forward to see where the judge lands in sentencing. 9 to 36 months for a charge like that. I think that's interesting to see how that will play out. When you heard Casey Goodson's mother say, he murdered Casey, he said the roller coaster of emotions, and then Jason Meade out on he had $250,000 bond, and she made issue with that, that she wants to see him in jail. It'd be interesting to see where eventually he ends up and what jail he goes to. We don't know those details yet, but that will be coming in certainly in the next day or two. We'll know where he's actually being held. So I think that's going to be interesting to see in terms of the sentencing, especially as to where an officer and how that plays out, considering his background, where the judge go on the low end or the high end. Back to you.
Kevin, do you remember Mark Collins saying that this felony 3 does not mandate jail time, and he was saying that it could possibly have probation as a, sentence? So was he incorrect in saying that?
No, I'm not going to second guess Mark Collins, but I think he's right when he made that when he tried to make that argument to the judge. He said there was no preponderance of prison time. And he says some people have been given probation, and so he was trying to argue that just after the sentencing was heard, and then he revoked his bond. So there's obviously going to be a hearing about that, and we'll see where that plays out. There could be a possibility where the judge decides that there was no reason to have him spend time in prison. In a high-profile case like this, you have to wonder what's going through the judge's mind in terms of how he's going to, decide on that final sentencing, because obviously Meade has no prior criminal record, and so that will obviously play heavily into where he lands in the sentencing scale in terms of either 9, 36 months or no prison time at all. It'll be obviously interesting to see if that happens.
All right, thank you, Kevin.
And he certainly didn't waste any time arguing that bond revocation, just moments after and right before they were about to clear the courtroom with that. We're going to go back out to Lacey Crisp right now. And Lacey, you covered both trials in this. A lot has happened in a short period of time here with the emotion that was happening in the courtroom there and how this ended up. There's a bit of surprise here.
Well, you talk about the range of emotion. You can absolutely feel the Goodson family and their elation. On the other hand, you can see, I'm sorry, we're going to toss it back outside to the courthouse.
They're coming up. I I think you guys have me out here.
So we have that roller coaster of emotion in the Meade family. You have them on the other spectrum, obviously, from the Goodson family. And I spoke with the defense attorneys, and they told me right now it's just too difficult. They're trying to take care of the Meade family as they're trying to navigate this and what happens next for them. Normally, Mark Collins and Caitlin Stevens would be talking to us after all of these trials. They have come and talked to us, but it's been very emotional for them too, for the defense attorneys. They've been with the Meade family now for 5.5 years. They were with the Meade family right after everyone left the courtroom. And so when I spoke with Mark and Caitlin, they said they're going to issue a statement at some point in time, but they just needed a minute to be with the family and to kind of absorb their new reality of what happens next. You know, during the trial, Mark Collins asked for a mistrial several times because of things that had happened in the courtroom or things that the prosecutors had said. He said it was inappropriate, illegal, some of the decorum issues that happened in the courtroom. So while Mark Collins hasn't explicitly said it yet, I would expect that we would have some motions filed with the defense team with the guilty verdict and everything that has transpired here in the last almost 3 weeks during this trial. Of course, now with the bond revoked, we've got to find out what happens next with Jason Meade. And those questions we should get answered here in the near future. Back to you guys.
All right, Lacey, you've spent a lot of time with Mark Collins and that whole defense team. Do you think they'll appeal this? I mean, what does your gut say?
It's hard to say. You know, like I said, Mark has made several motions during the trial about some of the things that have happened. I would guess that he would file some motions to try to get the conviction overturned. Again, that's speculating. That's without talking to the defense team at all. But given some of the motions that he made during the trial, that would be my guess. But that will be some weeks or months down the road.
Okay, thank you, Lacey.
All right, so summarizing the state versus Jason Meade, guilty on reckless homicide and a mistrial declared in the murder charge. All unfolding here today. You saw outside the courtroom there some of the family members. Casey Goodson Jr.'s family making their way outside. We have Libby Cathy outside right now. We're going to check back in with Libby in just a little bit. We're going to step aside right now, and we are going to head over to Station Naken and Angela, and when we come back right after this.